Good morning. It's 8:45 here, and we're getting an early start because I promised you I would come back and change this orchid from moss to bark, because all of mine are. You know, I know there's so many different ways to grow your orchids. I have tried a lot of them, but you know, maybe you just change it for your climate. Sometimes you can just adjust the pots. But for me, what I consider less work is bark. And it's just my preference. And yes, they do take a little time to establish themselves, even if it's a year. Because pretty soon you have so many that you don't mind waiting that year. But if you just got one, sometimes you think, oh my God, it's dying. But just give it time and be patient, and always check your pot to make sure you get your schedule of watering right. And you can adjust the pot or the orchid. Or if you need a crutch, you can add a little crutch to your bark. But I find it less work, and I find once they're established, they're so hardy. You can go away for 2 weeks if you have to. I mean, set them in your bathroom or somewhere where you got water. You know, one thing that works is if you just put a little thing across your bathtub, if you have a bathtub, lay them up there, put some water underneath, make sure there's a light on, take your holiday. They will be fine when you come back. And others have done it. But anyway, the more I look at this orchid and the color, it's so beautiful. It really is, and it's kind of a magenta. I think in the 60s I had a ski suit. Not that I was a great skier. And this color, it's beautiful. Yes, I'm very happy with that, but I cannot go on and do this without showing you the babies, because this is Alphinia, Phalaenopsis, and I show her every time because she has been in flowers since April the 28th. So I want to show you, she is losing one, but she has another one coming right behind. And she seems to be just doing that steadily. She hasn't been without a flower since I got her. It's amazing. So she came in moss, and I've slowly been transitioning her to bark. And whenever I've done that, I've done a video on it. And there's not much moss left in there, but there's a little, but she's amazing. So I just had to show you that again. And the other one, I think it's Shariana, Shariana Sogo. So she got that new leaf, and she's doing good. I see nice roots down there, so that's good. So now I see there's one bud right here already. Let me get my scissors. I didn't notice that, but there is one. She's still in her moss, but I see one. Ooh, there we go. You don't know how long they've been in bloom before you got them. And of course the ones back here are the first ones, so I would say she's losing one of her first ones, so I've snipped it off. There. So the first thing we want to do is get her out of this moss. So we'll just take her out, because I drop potted her in there. I'm going to use the same pot. So I haven't watered her yet. And she's still got a lot of the outside bark and the top, because of our air, it was quite dry already. My bark is always dry at the top, always. I don't put anything in there. And you know, the roots that come to the top, if you've looked, they're always green and got good growth. They don't care that it's dry on the top because they're after that humidity. So they do need that humidity or they're going to dry up. So to keep humidity around them. This is very, very firm. Okay. Oh boy, what a night. Last night, Jack decided, you know, we watched a movie or something, and then it was time to go to bed, and he decided that we have an ambrosia tree, and we have a honeycrisp out there. They're just young trees, but the apples are just beautiful this year. I don't know if it was smoke or what it was. But anyway, they're beautiful this year. So we were looking at keeping them, and they say they like to keep them cold, like if freezing's 32, maybe like 36 or something temperature with humidity too. So we have a freezer in the garage. It's not that good, and he thought, well, maybe he could put it to its lowest setting and it wouldn't be freezing. But we put a little cup of water in there and it was freezing, so we couldn't do that. So here, you know, late at night, he's going, you know, I don't think the freezer, I said, I thought you put in like a jug of water in your freezer and it saves more power because your freezer's full. He says, no, that doesn't make any difference. I have to look that up on the internet. I always understood that if the freezer was full, it used less power. So anyway, after that, I was trying to think, all I could think about was freezers and, you know, and I'm trying to go to sleep. And then I remembered this poem. I've had it for years, and I brought it out here to show you. And years ago when I used to have nervousness and stress, I always used to recite this poem. It Slow Me Down, Lord. It's a wonderful poem. You should read it. I think it's from 57 or something. It's an older poem. I think it's a Turkish poem, but it's beautiful. So anyway, here I am, and surprised myself. I started reciting this poem, and I fell asleep reciting it. It's really quite nice little poem. So, and it was a good way to fall asleep. Yeah, so I'm going to put some water on this now and see if I can get some more. It's really compacted. Now it's a little. You don't want it too warm, you don't want it too cold. Maybe a little cooler than baby's bottle, but I have my plug-in upside down in the sink because I don't want any plumbing issues. Okay, that's somewhere. You want to get all this out because even a little bit, it was just like a water slide. It hit this and off it went all over the floor. Okay. Wow, some of these are long. Look at that. Okay. Got to go way up in the center. You know, some people, and I've had a few people tell me this, they're lucky enough to buy their orchid in bark. But then they get home, they say, hey, I don't have to pot it, it's in bark, or do I have to change the bark? No, I don't think you have to change the bark. You can, or you could do half and half whatever you have and half that bark. But you have to be careful because they have those little, they're little cups where they started the original plant as a baby, and it was in moss. So in the center, and can you see how long that little cup has been there when your plant is already so old and it's still there? The moss in that cup is rancid, old, And if you're watering a lot and the water goes straight to that every time, you're going to get rot. Now, believe it or not, I think I was watching a Mexican video or something with beautiful orchids, and they were leaving them all in. Now, if it's dry, maybe they can get away with it. But people have told me that they have lost their beautiful orchid and it came in bark because that was in there. So if you do get one and it is in bark, still check it. Still check it. You don't know, and better safe than later sorry. Yeah. But once you're into the bark and your plant is established, there isn't much problem. There's a lot of flowers on this. It's quite heavy, really. Getting there. Oh, yesterday I made an apple pie. The neighbors, because took them some tomatoes and they brought over a bag of apples, and they were not like ours, like mostly eating apples. They were nice pie apples. So everybody's going, we want an apple pie. So I made an apple pie. It was delicious, but we had to run to town and get some ice cream. You can't have apple pie without ice cream. So, but then I also wanted to do these baked tomatoes. I got a recipe from a subscriber, Georgia, and I'm going to make stuffed baked tomatoes from our baked tomatoes. And it's a good recipe. So I thought, oh, I'm in town, I may as well pick up the ice cream and pick up what I need to do that. So it should be exciting. I'll have to take some pictures, see how it turns out. So, okay, let's see how we're doing here. The roots look really good. I got this the day it came in. And the roots look really good. It should have a little pair of tweezers here, but of course I don't. But I often use a little knife just to sometimes. I think I'm getting that. Getting a bit of a shower. Okay, so you want to make sure you got all that in there. You notice that like this one, there's lots of leaves, but none of those dry sheaves that sometimes get left, and I say to pull them off. There's none of those on this orchid, so they must take them off. I'm just very carefully going up into the little crotches of the roots, making sure. Then I'll give it another rinse. You know, this takes a little bit of time, but time well spent. So what are we looking at? Oh, there's one little tiny thing right here, but it's actually dry. So I like to, if I don't have to cut them, I won't. I'll just leave the actual root and just take the vellum that's no good, which is the outer surface, off. And there's some here. I mean, a little bit would be like leaving that crutch in your pot, but the trouble is if it's a whole bunch in one spot, it could start to leave dampness in that area. So anyway, I isolated it in the corner. It's not been with the others, just to make sure. I saw no signs of anything crawling on it. The roots are actually very healthy. You have to keep looking. Now here's a wet one. This one here is wet. So I just pulled it off. I got this stuff. So sometimes, even ours, if they're in a wet area, they got near something. Anyway, beautiful. Okay, so this goes all in my compost. And I'm gonna just lay that down for a minute, the flowers, so they don't get hurt. There we go. Because I have the moss in this pot, and I want to make sure that it's clean and there's nothing left in it. I washed the pot before I used it. And now I will use my hydrogen peroxide, and I'll just spray in there. Soak it good. Okay. Give it another rinse. There we go. So I have my pot, and then I have that screen I cut because these holes are so, they're so big. We had a bit of smoke again the other day, and they gave us a warning on the cell phone. Excuse me. And gone now, but Jack and I were both like, you know, it's not gonna go viral. Something we've just been putting up with. So there, I'm using that screen before I put any bark in, and the air can still get in, but it's a nice pot, and it's a shame not to use it. So, wow, there is lots of roots on that. But you know what? I'm just putting it in this small pot, and when it's established, then I'll move it to a bigger pot. I kind of like twisted it around because there was some long ones. They love to feel attached. Just picture it, how nice it feels to have a hug. Well, they like to be hugged, so they like to feel attached. So even if they're in a bigger pot, they still like to be firm, and they quickly grow roots out and hang on, and then they're happy. So once this is in the pot, tomorrow's watering day, and we do know that the bark dries out quicker. Even though I've soaked it for 3 days with a little bit of seaweed extract and some cow may, the bark dries out quicker, probably for the first month. And when you water it, it's going to run through. So you can water it more. Now this is contrary to some things you might read. As long as those roots were healthy, you don't have to go and let it dry out real good. They're healthy. You want to keep them as close to what they were. Now, moss stays damp. So, while this bark is adjusting the first month, even the first 2 months, I would say, like for me, water it twice a week. Because why? Like the others are only getting once a week right now. But because it's used to that extra dampness, and because the bark is just new and it's not really absorbing a lot of moisture, most of it is running through. So no more than twice, and don't go crazy misting or anything, but twice should be enough. And as you know, doesn't matter what medium you're changing in your pot, the orchids will grow new roots to suit that medium. Now that doesn't mean they all die. It means some of them will die, and it means that quite often you'll see those older roots and new roots coming as shoots off of them. Those are stronger. So I try not to cut anything off I don't have to cut off. It's just rotten roots. Now, if it's been in the moss a long time, and you got it and it's been in the store a long time, and you're dealing with mushy roots, well, those roots, they should probably be trim it off real good. Make sure they're all firm, the ones that you have left. And you could even lay it on the counter for a day and let those ends dry out and then pot it up. And it's just the longer they go, the more trouble you're going to have. So I've got this pretty firmly in the pot. Oh, it's a beautiful day. I want to go work out in the garden a bit today. With me, it just means I got a radio out in this patio, so I have it on nice, not so loud it bothers all the neighbors. And then I just relax and just take my time. It is nice. It's kind of like that poem. Slow me down, Lord. Ease the pounding of my heart by the quieting of my mind. Steady my hurried pace with the vision of the eternal reach of time. Give me, amid the confusion of the day, the calmness of the everlasting hills. I know, it goes on like that. It's really nice. And it says, like, slow down to talk to a friend, pat a dog, you know, look at the flowers, read a good book. It's a kind of very nice poem that, to me, years and years ago, when I had a lot of problems, it's something I read often. I used to put it in the bathroom of all places, and whenever I was in there, I'd read it, and I've memorized it. So, you know, if I have trouble falling asleep, I will recite. Next thing you know, I'm sleeping. So, okay, she's all potted, and that will be it for today. Thanks for joining me. I'm thinking I have never drilled a hole in a glass bowl. Jack always does it for me. And I found the most beautiful bowl one day. And then I found a little stand, and I found it's so pretty that I set like a hole there. And he's like, well, why don't you learn how to do it? So there may be this video coming, and I hope I don't break it. So he will be there giving me instructions, he said, and making sure that nothing happens. But it might be a good way for those that want to drill a hole to see a beginner do it. So that will be up and coming. So that's it for the day. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for all the comments. You know, everybody says give a thumbs up and a like and everything. I said, give me some comments. It's like talking to a neighbor. And it looks like I got to do that, so I better go talk about ringing at the right time. Bye for now.